William Shakespeare. There's a story about a boy who grew up in a small town called Stratford-upon-Avon. His father was a glove maker. His mother couldn't read. He had no royal blood, no wealth, no privilege. Just a head full of questions and a heart that refused to stop imagining. His name was William Shakespeare. And that ordinary boy would go on to write words so powerful that 400 years later, we still whisper them, quote them, live by them. But what made him different? Why did his words survive when so many others faded? You see, Shakespeare didn't just write plays, he decoded people. He saw what most of us refuse to see, that every human being carries an entire universe inside them, of love, fear, jealousy, ambition, rage, and hope. He didn't write about kings and queens to glorify them. He wrote about us, our contradictions, our chaos, our courage. When you read Shakespeare, you realize he understood something profound. The human heart hasn't changed in 400 years. The costumes are different. The technology is different. But envy still burns, love still blinds, and ambition still destroys. That's why we still quote him. Because he didn't just describe human nature. He revealed it. But let's rewind for a moment. Before he became the bard, Shakespeare was a failure. In his 20s, he left his small town for London, chasing a dream with nothing but his words. No connections, no money, just a belief that stories could change everything. At first, he struggled. The theaters were crowded, loud, and ruthless. The competition was brutal. Actors fought for attention. Writers stole from each other. Critics mocked him, but Shakespeare kept going. He kept writing, because he wasn't chasing applause. He was chasing understanding. He wanted to understand why people do what they do, why we love, why we lie, why we destroy the things we care about most. And through that obsession, he found his magic. Shakespeare had a secret. He listened. He watched. He studied people. While others tried to impress, he tried to observe. He saw patterns, how pride blinds kings, how guilt haunts killers, how power corrupts even the noble. And then he turned those truths into stories. When he wrote Macbeth, he wasn't just writing about a murderer. He was warning us about the hunger for power that lives inside all of us. When he wrote Romeo and Juliet, he wasn't glorifying love. He was showing how passion, when uncontrolled, can become tragedy. When he wrote Hamlet, he wasn't describing indecision. He was showing how overthinking can kill action. Each play was a mirror. And in that mirror, humanity saw itself, raw, flawed, real. But here's the part most people miss. Shakespeare wasn't perfect. In fact, he was constantly rewriting, borrowing ideas, and reinventing himself. He never stopped learning. He mixed poetry with street slang. He wrote about kings and fools in the same breath. He didn't care about rules. He cared about truth. That's the first lesson. Master the craft, then make it your own. Just like Picasso would do centuries later, Shakespeare learned the structure first, the rhythm, the poetry, the form, and then broke it open. He showed that genius isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about seeing what others ignore. The second lesson, write for the soul, not the stage. Most playwrights wrote for applause. Shakespeare wrote for immortality. He wrote words that would outlive kings. He knew that the human soul never goes out of style. That's why his stories still breathe today, in movies, songs, and speeches. Because he wasn't writing then. He was writing forever. And the third lesson, don't wait for greatness. Create it where you are. Shakespeare didn't have fancy tools. He didn't have fame, fortune, or even freedom of expression. England in his time was harsh. Censorship was real. Plagues shut down the theaters. But he kept going. He wrote through the noise, through the fear, through the doubt. He once said through one of his characters, "There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." That line alone, it's the philosophy of resilience. He believed that your mindset shapes your reality. That creativity isn't found in perfect conditions. It's built in the chaos. So when life gets messy, when the stage collapses, when the audience disappears, keep writing anyway. Because your words, your ideas, your art, they matter more than you think. There's something else about Shakespeare most people forget. He never published his own works. He never knew how famous he'd become. He never saw his legacy. After he died, his friends, fellow actors, collected his plays and printed them in a single book called the First Folio. Without them, Shakespeare might have vanished. But because he wrote something worth saving, his voice became eternal. That's the ultimate lesson. Create something that deserves to outlive you. Not for fame, not for money, but for meaning. Because the words you write, the stories you tell, the actions you take, they echo longer than you can imagine. Shakespeare once wrote, "All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players." He understood that life itself is theater, that we all play roles. But the question is, are you acting in your own story or someone else's? Are you writing your script or just reciting lines written by fear, comfort, or expectation? Because the truth is, every day you get to write a new scene. You get to rewrite your story. And if a boy from a small town with no fame, no fortune, and no privilege could write words that change the world, so can you. So speak your truth. Tell your story. Write your lines before someone else writes them for you. Because the world doesn't need another Shakespeare. It needs you to see, feel, and create like he did, with courage, honesty, and imagination. And maybe one day, centuries from now, someone will whisper your words and say, they still speak to us. We know what we are, but not what we may be. William Shakespeare. So become who you were meant to be.